Welcome back to Trail Tales. If you're planning a trip to Zion National Park and you're considering climbing Angel's Landing, then this video is for you. We'll start by explaining everything you should know before hiking it, how to prepare, and give you a taste of the hike itself. This is not an easy hike by any means, physically or psychologically, so it does pay to be prepared. Zion National Park is in the far south of Utah, about 3 hours drive from Las Vegas Airport. Angel's Landing sits in the middle of the main valley that constitutes the more accessible parts of the park. Our planned hike was a 9.5 kilometer out and back trail starting from the Grotto picnic area and bus stop. It's a very steep hike and we were starting at the hottest part of the day. The trail map is a mess because there's very little GPS signal due to the sheer cliffs you climb up. There is zero cell service once you leave the Grotto bus station, so plan appropriately.
Yeah, so we are about to start our Angel's Landing Trail. We have a permit that allows us to enter afternoon, which is the last permit slot. I have a fear of falling. It's not of heights specifically, but I'm pretty confident. I've mentally prepared myself that we're gonna do okay.
So we applied for this permit months ago. We won the lottery, quite fortunately. A convenient time and a convenient day for us in the middle of our trip. So it's perfect really. It's a nice clear day, a little hot.
Although you don't need a permit to hike the West Rim Trail to Scouts Lookout, a ranger checked our permits at the bottom and gave us a friendly reminder to ensure we had enough water with us for the hike. You can also apply for a permit the day before via a different system, but there are no permits issued on the day and they are never guaranteed. If you really want to do this hike and avoid disappointment, I recommend entering the lottery well in advance, and if that fails, you should plan 2 to 3 days where you could do the hike and apply for permits once you're here. The first 15 minutes are easy. The path is mostly level and it is all well maintained, following the riverbed. And then you come face to face with the really daunting part of the hike, the steep cliff face that you need to scale. From the ground, you can barely see the path. Whenever we stumbled across the sparse, shaded spots, we stopped to rest for a few minutes. Any respite from the scorching desert sun is welcome, and at midday, there isn't much of it. However, since you're standing on the edge of a cliff, there is nothing impeding the incredible view down the valley. This kept us motivated during the climb to the top of the cliff. When most people talk about Angel's Landing, they overlook the West Rim Trail, which took us just over an hour to complete. It was grueling in the midday sun. Take plenty of rests, drink lots. We recommend bringing at least 2 liters of water per person.
Completed the first big climb on the way up to Scouts Outlook. And now we're in a little valley which is offering quite a bit of shade, which is quite welcome. But it's very hot in the sun, so we have to stop quite a lot in the shade.
After the valley, there is another incredibly steep set of switchbacks that take you up to Scouts Lookout, and the checkpoint for the start of the Angel's Landing Trail is right after that. Here you have 2 options. If you don't have a permit, you can go and check out Scouts Lookout. The viewpoint has the best view of Angel's Landing Peak itself, and the park ranger said it has a very similar view of the Zion Valley. It's just a much less challenging hike. If you have your permit, the park rangers will check it here, and you can begin the Angel's Landing Trail. There are park rangers stationed there all day, every day, and we watched them turn many hikers around who didn't bring their permit or didn't have one. pleading ignorance and begging with them will not get you onto the trail. The first section of the trail is chained, so you have something to hold on to, which really boosts your confidence.
So I think the hardest part, at least in my mind, is all of the rocks look like steps. Looks like a giant staircase, all the different layers of sedimentary rock. But they're all pointing different ways, and most of them are pointing down. So it can be hard to find a good spot to stand. And yeah, it's very narrow. And that spooked out quite a few people. But the views are incredible.
The trail topography is a little like a camel's back. You start with a short ascent, then there is a large descent before the final climb up the second hump. This should not be underestimated. In this heat, after climbing so far, I was quite tired and I slowed down during this section so as not to overheat.
So now there's a bit of a descent before the final climb to the very top. I am lost for words.
This is the really nerve-wracking part, as you are directly between the two humps. The path is barely a foot wide, and the cliffs on either side are vertical. At this point, I was on all fours climbing, so make sure you're comfortable doing that before you begin this trail.
I can't really see this, but there's barely enough room for me to squeeze through here. Oh.
The park rangers told us that it can take upwards of 2 hours simply waiting for others to pass. While it's limited to only 800 hikers a day, the path is extremely narrow and it's physically challenging. I was lucky because it was so quiet, it took me only 1 hour up and down.
On the final stretch, 20 meters to go. There's nothing on either side of me, just a couple of trees and a very long way down to fall. But such a clear day, I can see a very long way down the valley. I also feel like I'm the only one up here, which feels very special. Wow.
Upon reaching the peak, despite being a sweaty, exhausted mess, I felt shivers. The view up and down Zion Valley is absolutely unparalleled. Standing on the top, you feel so exposed and you get a true sense for the meaning of the name. Looking down at the road, seeing how small the cars and buses are, you realize just how high up you are and just how grand the scale of this national park really is. It was a truly humbling experience. So while I was tackling Angel's Landing, Erin was checking out Scout's Lookout. The hike takes about 45 minutes total from the top of the West Rim Trail, and it's a good option if some of your party is unable to do Angel's Landing. A word of warning, because there is no cell service, you must make a plan to meet up at the top. Learn from our mistake. We didn't make a plan, and we both had to walk down to the grotto separately.
apart from a couple of sections like that one, going down is so much easier than going up. You can see everything. Just absolutely not worried about falling. And you get to enjoy the amazing view too.
After the first chain section ended, the sheer cliffs and downward sloping ground was a little too much for me, so I turned around. Yes, hiking is about getting out of your comfort zone, but having a panic attack in a place where you cannot be rescued was a risk I didn't want to take. Knowing and respecting your limits is important. Scouts Lookout is a great alternative if you don't have a permit or if you can't make it all the way to the top of Angel's Landing. The view was breathtaking.
In total, we hiked 9.5 kilometers. We gained a total of 856 meters of elevation. We were moving for around 2 hours and 40 minutes. The whole thing took around 3 hours and 6 minutes. And this is definitely a difficult hike. The elevation gain and the heat and the lack of shade make this very challenging. Plus, the psychological aspect of the steep drops and the narrow paths. Feel free to ask us about the trail in the comments. We'd be very happy to answer your questions to help you enjoy this trail. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment, leave a like, and maybe even consider subscribing if you'd like to join us on another hike in Zion, or in Utah, or anywhere else in the world.